The night was quiet, but inside the small wooden house, silence felt heavy. The widowed human sat alone at the table, a cup of cold tea in his hands. His two little daughters slept in the next room, their soft breaths filling the empty space. He stared at the flickering lamp, remembering the warm smile of his late wife. The world had taken her away too soon, and now only he was left to carry the burden of father and mother together. Every day, he worked hard. He cut wood, traded small things in the nearby village, and brought food home. Yet no matter how much he tried, something was missing. The girls often asked questions at night. "Papa, who will brush our hair like Mama did? Papa, will anyone sing for us before we sleep?" He tried to smile, but deep inside, those words broke him. The villagers treated him with pity, but also with distance. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Poor man, raising daughters alone. He needs a wife, but who would marry him now? He ignored them, though their words cut deep. He had stopped dreaming for himself long ago. His only wish was for his daughters to grow up with love, not loneliness, but the burden was too heavy. Two little girls needed care, warmth, and a gentle hand he could not always provide. His rough palms, used to axes and tools, were not made for soft braids and bedtime songs. And in his quiet heart, he felt guilty. He loved them with all his soul, but he knew he was not enough. One evening, while walking back from the village, he took a longer path. His daughters ran ahead, laughing, chasing fireflies that lit up the night. He followed slowly, his thoughts heavy, until his eyes caught sight of a broken hut near the edge of the alien settlement. The place was dark, almost abandoned. But then he saw her, an alien woman sitting alone by a small fire. Her clothes were torn, her face hidden under shadows. She looked fragile, yet her eyes were filled with a strange light, like a star struggling to shine through smoke. The villagers had whispered about her too. An outcast, rejected by her own kind. No family, no friends, no place to belong. He stopped, watching from a distance. His daughters, curious, peeked at the strange woman, but he quickly pulled them back. Still, he could not forget her image. She was like him, carrying loneliness like a stone chained to her soul. The next day and the day after, he passed by again. Sometimes he saw her gathering wood, sometimes sitting quietly with nothing but silence around her. Once he noticed her eyes following his daughters, softening as they laughed and played. It was not hunger or envy, it was longing, as if she had once known the sound of children's laughter and lost it forever. The widower's heart stirred. At night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His daughters clutched their small blankets beside him, unaware of his thoughts. "They need a mother," he whispered to himself. But where would he find one? No human woman wanted the burden of two daughters, and no alien woman was trusted by his village. Yet, the image of that lonely alien woman stayed in his mind. He saw her hands, tired but gentle. He saw her eyes filled with pain but also kindness. And he wondered, almost afraid to admit it, could she be the one? The burden grew heavier each day. His daughters were growing, and so was their need for a mother's love. He knew he could not carry this weight forever. One wrong step, one moment of weakness, and he might fail them. And failure was something he could never allow. So he made a decision. One evening, after putting his daughters to bed, he sat at the table again. The flickering lamp painted his face with shadows. He clenched his fists and whispered, "Tomorrow I will speak to her." His heart beat fast, fear and hope mixing together. It was madness, maybe, but perhaps madness was better than endless loneliness. He did not know if she would laugh at him or reject him or walk away. He did not know if his daughters would accept her or if the village would curse him. But he knew one thing. He could no longer bear this lonely burden alone. Far away, the alien woman sat by her broken hut, staring at the same stars. She too whispered to herself, "Will I ever belong?" Neither of them knew that their lives were about to change forever. The alien woman lived on the edge of her people's land, in a broken hut that barely kept out the wind. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when rain fell, and the ground inside was hard and cold. She had nothing, not even the comfort of belonging. Her people had pushed her away long ago. They called her cursed. Some said she had brought bad luck to her clan. Others whispered she was strange, different, too quiet, too thoughtful. Whatever the reason, they left her to survive on her own. Every morning she walked to the forest to collect firewood. Every evening she cooked the little food she could find. And every night she sat by the fire, staring into the dark, asking herself why she was still alive. Loneliness had become her shadow. She remembered once having family, but memories hurt too much, so she locked them deep inside. Sometimes she dreamed of holding a child, of hearing soft laughter fill her small hut, but dreams only reminded her of what she could never have. Then she saw them, the human man and his 2 daughters. They passed her hut more than once on their way from the village. At first she ignored them, lowering her eyes, afraid of their judgment. But one evening she looked up, and the sight stopped her breath. 2 little girls chasing fireflies, their laughter ringing through the dusk. They ran in circles, hands stretched out to catch the glowing lights. The father followed behind, tired but watchful, his face worn yet kind. The woman felt something stir inside her chest, something she thought was long dead. The girls' voices reminded her of her old dreams. She wanted to look away, but she could not. She wanted to shut her heart, but it refused. Her eyes softened without her control. When one girl stumbled and the father lifted her gently, the alien woman's lips trembled. For a second, she imagined she was the one holding that child. But then the human saw her. His eyes met hers across the distance. She froze, shame flooding her. Quickly, she turned her face and stepped back into the shadows of her hut. That night, she could not sleep. Her chest felt heavy and questions ran through her mind. Why did he look at me like that? Why did his daughter's laughter sound like music? Why do I feel hope? The next day she tried to keep busy. She carried water from the stream, stacked wood for her fire, and cleaned the dirt floor of her hut. But her mind kept drifting. She thought of the human's strong hands, of his weary eyes that seemed to carry pain she understood. She thought of his daughters, their tiny feet pattering on the road, their smiles bright as sunlight. Foolish heart, she whispered to herself. They are not for you, stay away. Stay silent, but fate had other plans. That evening, the human passed again. His daughters laughed as always, chasing each other. The man slowed as he neared her hut. He did not speak, only looked. Not with pity, not with fear, but with something she could not name. Respect, curiosity, perhaps even need. Her hands trembled. She turned her back quickly, pretending to fix the fire. But inside her heart raced. No one had looked at her like that in years. No one had seen her, truly seen her. Later, when the night grew cold, she wrapped herself in an old blanket and sat by the fire. The stars blinked above her, sharp and clear. She whispered to them as she often did. I am alone. I will always be alone. But her voice cracked and her eyes burned. Deep down, she wanted to believe it was not true. Deep down, she longed for one chance, just one, to belong again. And far away in his small wooden house, the human whispered to himself as he tucked his daughters into bed. Tomorrow I will speak to her. 2 lonely souls carrying different wounds stood on the edge of change. Neither knew what the next day would bring. But something had begun, quiet as a spark in the dark. The human man did not sleep well. All night he turned in his bed, listening to the soft breaths of his daughters. The image of the alien woman would not leave his mind. Her tired face, her lonely eyes, the way she watched his children with hidden warmth. He felt as if their pain was the same, like 2 broken pieces that might fit together. By morning, he had made his choice. His daughters needed more than his calloused hands and weary voice. They needed a mother, and she needed a home. He prepared himself carefully. He washed his face, tied his old cloak, and carried a small bundle of food. His heart beat faster with every step as he walked toward the broken hut. His daughters followed behind, curious but quiet, sensing something unusual. When he reached the hut, the alien woman was outside, stacking wood. She stiffened when she saw him. Her first thought was that he had come to mock her, like others did. Her second thought was to run inside and hide. But then she noticed his daughters peeking from behind him, their wide eyes innocent and full of curiosity. The man stood tall, though fear shook inside him. I came to speak with you, he said. His voice was rough yet steady. The woman frowned, uncertain. Why? He placed the bundle of food on a stone near her fire. Bread, dried meat, and a little fruit. Her eyes widened. No one had ever brought her such a gift before. I know what it is to be alone, he said slowly. I know what it is to carry pain. But my daughters, they need a mother. And you? He hesitated, searching for words. You need shelter. You need a place where you are not alone. Her heart stopped. She stared at him, unable to breathe. What are you saying? She whispered. The man swallowed hard. His eyes softened as he looked at her. I am asking you to stay with us. Not as a servant. Not as charity. As family. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The crackling fire, the chirping of distant birds, even the soft wind seemed to wait for her answer. Her mind raced. Was this a trick? Was he pitying her? Did he not know she was cursed, unwanted by her people? Her lips trembled as she spoke. You don't understand. I am an outcast. My own people hate me. If you take me in, your village will hate you too. The man's jaw tightened. They already whisper about me. They already look at my daughters with pity. I do not care for their voices. I care for what is right. She looked at his daughters, who were now sitting on the grass watching her with shy curiosity. One of them held a small flower and after a pause walked closer. With a trembling hand, the little girl offered it to her. For you, the child said softly. The alien woman froze. She had not touched kindness in years, and now it came from the smallest hands. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. The human stepped forward. You don't have to answer now. But think, you could have shelter, warmth, family, and we could have you. Her voice cracked. Why me? Because I see you, he said simply. Not what others say. Not what you fear. I see you. Her knees weakened. She had dreamed of belonging, but dreams always turn to ashes. And yet, here was a man offering her something she thought was impossible. A chance to be needed. A chance to be wanted. The woman lowered her head, clutching the flower against her chest. The fire beside her flickered, its light touching her face. For the first time in many years, she felt warmth that was not from the flames. But deep inside, fear still whispered. Would she ruin them if she said yes? Would the village destroy them if she became their family? She said nothing, only turned away with shaking hands. But in her silence, hope had already begun to bloom. The man did not press her. He gathered his daughters and prepared to leave. I will return tomorrow, he said quietly. Think on it. As they walked away, the alien woman touched the flower again, her tears falling silently. She whispered to herself, family. Could I still be worthy of that? The stars above her seemed brighter that night, as if the universe itself waited for her choice. The next morning came with soft rain tapping on the wooden roof of the widower's house. The man rose early, his heart heavy with doubt. Would she accept? Or had his words only wounded her further? Still, he gathered courage, holding his daughter's hands as he walked once more toward the broken hut. When they arrived, the alien woman was standing outside. Her eyes were red from sleeplessness, but in her hands, she still held the little flower his daughter had given her. She looked at the man, then at the children, and finally whispered, I will try. It was not a promise, not yet, but it was the beginning. The human led her back to his small home. His daughters clung to him at first, uncertain of the strange woman with pale skin and soft, shimmering eyes. The alien woman stepped carefully inside, her fingers brushing the wooden door frame as if crossing into another world. The warmth of the fire, the scent of baked bread, and the tiny voices of the children all pressed against her heart. At first, silence ruled. She sat in a corner, unsure where to place her hands, unsure if she even belonged. The girls whispered to each other, stealing quick glances at her. The man noticed their tension and spoke gently. She is here as family. Treat her as such, one of the girls frowned. Is she really our mother now? The man paused, his eyes soft. She is someone who wants to care for you. Let your hearts decide the rest. The alien woman's chest tightened. No one had ever given her such a chance before. That night, when the children prepared for bed, she hesitated outside their room. The man nodded for her to enter. With trembling steps, she walked in and saw the girls lying under thin blankets. One of them whispered, Mama used to sing to us. Her throat tightened. She had no song in their language. But she closed her eyes and sang in her own alien tongue, soft, melodic words that floated like the sound of wind in the trees. The girls listened, their eyes wide at first, then slowly closing as the strange but soothing melody carried them into dreams. The widower stood outside the door, listening. His eyes glistened. For the first time in many years, his daughters fell asleep to a mother's voice. Days passed. The alien woman began to weave herself into the house. She cooked meals with gentle care, adding flavors from her forgotten people. She mended torn clothes with delicate stitches. She brushed the girls' hair, though clumsily at first, and tied it with small braids. The children laughed at her mistakes, but soon their laughter turned into trust. One afternoon, as the girls played in the yard, the youngest tripped and scraped her knee. She cried, calling for her father. But before he could reach her, the alien woman rushed forward. She lifted the child, cleaned the wound with careful hands, and whispered words of comfort. The girl hugged her tightly, sobbing into her chest. The widower froze at the sight. A small voice in his heart whispered, "This is working," yet not everything was calm. The villagers noticed. They whispered louder now, their eyes filled with suspicion whenever the human came to the market. "He has taken an outcast alien into his home. It is unnatural. He has cursed his children with her presence." The man ignored their words, but he felt the weight pressing on his back. He worried the whispers would soon turn into something worse. The alien woman noticed the change too. She saw the glares, heard the hushed voices. At night, when everyone was asleep, she sat alone by the fire, wondering if she had made a mistake. Perhaps she had only brought trouble into the home that had offered her hope. But then a tiny hand touched hers. It was the younger daughter, half asleep, carrying her blanket. She whispered, "Don't leave. Please stay." The alien woman's heart broke and healed at the same time. She pulled the child into her arms and whispered back, "I will stay." In that moment, the shelter was no longer just a house. It had become a fragile bridge between two worlds, one human, one alien. And though the bridge was thin and shaking, it held a new kind of strength, the strength of chosen family. The widower watched them by the fire and knew that whatever storm was coming from outside, inside these walls they had already begun to build something worth protecting. The first days of her stay had been quiet, almost peaceful. The alien woman was beginning to believe she could belong. The daughter smiled more easily now, tugging at her hands, asking her to braid their hair or tell them stories. The widower, too, seemed lighter, his weary eyes softening whenever he saw his daughters laugh. But the world outside their wooden home was not blind, the village noticed. And the village whispered. At the market, the widower could feel their stares pressing into his back. Men who once greeted him now turned away. Women who once offered kind words now pulled their children close as if his family carried a sickness. The whispers grew sharp like knives in the air. "He has brought an alien into his home. An outcast, no less. Do you not see the danger?" His poor daughters. "What kind of mother is that?" The widower kept his jaw tight, his hands steady as he traded goods. But every word struck him like a hidden arrow. The alien woman felt it too. When she went with him to the well, silence followed her. When she passed through the fields, people turned their faces. She could hear them even when they thought she couldn't. "Unclean. Not one of us. She will ruin them all." Each word was a chain dragging her back into the pit of rejection she had escaped. At night, when the family slept, she lay awake on her mat, her heart trembling. She had begun to taste belonging, but now the bitter taste of doubt returned. One evening, as she stirred a pot of stew over the fire, the eldest daughter asked a question that pierced deeper than any whisper. "Will the villagers ever like you?" The alien woman froze. Her hands trembled around the spoon. She wanted to lie, to smile, to promise, but the truth sat heavy on her tongue. "Perhaps not," she said softly. The child frowned, then looked at her father. The widower put his arm around both daughters. "We don't need their approval," he said firmly. "What matters is here inside this house." But even he knew the truth. The voices of the village were growing, and sooner or later whispers could turn to something worse. The alien woman considered leaving. She told herself it would be better, safer for the man, safer for the daughters. She packed her small things quietly one night, her hands shaking. But just as she reached for the door, she felt tiny arms wrap around her waist. It was the younger daughter. Her eyes were full of tears. "Don't go," she whispered. "You are my mother now." The alien woman's breath broke. The bundle of belongings slipped from her hands. She knelt, hugging the child tightly, her tears falling into the little girl's hair. "I will not leave," she said, her voice shaking but strong. Still, fear lingered. The village was watching. The village was waiting. The very next day, 3 men approached the widower outside the market. Their faces were hard, their words sharp. "You shame us," one spat. "You bring her kind into our homes, among our children. You curse us all." The widower's hand clenched into a fist, but he kept his voice calm. "She has harmed no one. She cares for my daughters as a true mother would. That is enough." But their eyes burned with hatred, and their whispers carried far beyond the market. Back at home, the alien woman sat by the fire, braiding the daughter's hair. The widower entered with a heavy face. He did not speak, but she saw the storm in his eyes. She knew then their peace would not last, and yet, as the daughters laughed and leaned against her, she also knew something else. She would fight for this fragile family, no matter how the village judged her. For the first time in years, she was no longer just an outcast. She was something more. The storm came without warning. Clouds rolled black across the sky. Thunder shook the ground, and heavy rain fell like a curtain of knives. The widower hurried to secure the doors and windows, but his daughters were still outside, playing near the forest edge. "Stay inside," he shouted to the alien woman as he rushed into the storm. But the alien woman did not stay. Her heart leapt with fear. Those children were hers now too. Without a second thought, she threw a cloak over her shoulders and ran into the pouring rain. The forest had become a trap of mud and shadows. Lightning split the sky, revealing two small figures struggling against the wind. The girls cried, calling for their father. One had slipped into the mud, her ankle twisted, unable to move. The widower was still far behind, fighting the storm's force. But the alien woman was already there. She slid to her knees, pulling the crying child into her arms. Rain washed down her face, but her eyes blazed with determination. "Hold on to me," she cried. The other daughter clung to her side, and with strength she did not know she had, the alien woman carried both children through the raging storm. Branches whipped at her skin, mud dragged at her feet, but she refused to stop. Behind her, the widower reached them, his chest heaving. He saw her stumbling forward, holding both daughters tight against her chest. For a moment, his breath caught. She looked like a warrior, broken, rejected, but unshakable in her loyalty. At last, they reached the safety of the house. The alien woman collapsed to her knees, still clutching the children as if the storm would tear them away. The girls sobbed, burying their faces into her arms. "Don't cry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You are safe. I will never let you go." The widower stood in the doorway watching her. Something inside him shifted forever. She was no longer just a guest, no longer just an outcast. She had risked everything for his daughters without hesitation. The girls, shivering and wet, clung to her tighter. The younger one whispered through tears, "You are our mother, truly." The alien woman's heart broke and healed in the same moment. She closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her soul. For the first time since she was cast out by her own people, she felt like she belonged. That night, when the storm finally calmed, the widower placed a blanket over her shoulders. His voice was low but firm. "You saved them," he said. "You saved what I could not. From this day, you are not just shelter in my home. You are family." Tears ran down her face, mixing with the last drops of rain in her hair. She nodded, unable to speak, her heart too full. Outside, the storm passed, leaving the world quiet again. But inside their small wooden house, something stronger than any storm had taken root. Trust. And while the village still whispered in anger, the widower and his daughters knew the truth. This woman had proven her place, not with words, but with sacrifice. The storm had passed, but the whispers had not. By morning, the village was buzzing. News spread quickly. The outcast alien had saved the humans' daughters. Some villagers doubted it, others mocked it, but all of them talked about it. The widower walked into the market with his daughters beside him, the alien woman close behind. Her head was bowed, ready for the sharp looks and cruel words. But this time, things were different. The children clung to her hand, refusing to let go. People stopped and stared. Some whispered, some frowned, but many had seen the truth with their own eyes. In the storm, neighbors had watched from a distance, watched as she ran through the mud carrying children who were not her own, fighting nature itself to bring them home safe. A group of villagers approached. The same men who once spit words of hate now stood silent, uncertain. One finally spoke, his tone grudging but softer. "You risked your life. For human children." The alien woman raised her eyes, voice steady though her hands shook. "They are not just his children. They are my children now." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The widower stepped forward, his hand resting firmly on her shoulder. "She is my wife," he declared. "By choice. Not by pity, not by fear. By choice. She is their mother. By choice." His words rang louder than the whispers. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the eldest daughter, her small voice trembling, shouted, "She saved us! She is our mother!" The villagers looked at the children, their tiny faces shining with truth. Some turned away, unwilling to admit it. Others lowered their eyes, shame softening their anger. The whispers did not vanish completely, but the storm of hate had weakened. That night, inside their wooden home, the fire burned brighter than ever. The alien woman sat with the daughters in her lap, braiding their hair as they giggled. The widower sat across from them, a quiet smile on his face. "You once told me you needed shelter," he said softly. "But it was me who needed you. All of us did." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering. "And I once believed I could never belong. But now," her voice broke as the children leaned against her. "Now I have a family." The widower reached across the table, taking her hand. His calloused fingers pressed against her trembling ones, sealing the bond not with words of law or tradition, but with the simple truth of shared choice. Outside, the village still whispered. But inside this home, those whispers no longer mattered. What mattered was laughter, warmth, and a family born not of blood but of love and courage. The alien woman closed her eyes, listening to the daughters' voices. For the first time in her life, the silence of loneliness was gone. In its place was something far stronger, belonging. And as the firelight danced across their faces, it was clear. This was no longer a story of a widowed man or an outcast alien. This was the story of a family forged in choice, tested by rejection but bound together forever.